Can you imagine a world where rituals got support that would in turn enable really powerful ritual-based plays? Well, hello internet, welcome to Card Theory, where today we'll be diving to the deep end of deck theory by talking about Drytrons, and we'll be involving maths. I am aiming to uncover just how absolutely terrible of a deck Drytrons actually is. Yes, I'll be calculating the exact percentage of how often you should actually be losing to that awful deck. Now I will say this is going like the calculations I use will assume that the Drytron player never bricks, and I'm assuming that you will never brick either, because that's like, I'm stupid and I don't know how to calculate like every minute detail, but it's going to be just like a general idea of just roughly how often you should actually be losing to Drytron. So where do we begin? Well, let's just look at the very first interaction that you have in any match. Yes, that's right, the dice roll. Now, in order to win a dice roll, it's basically a 50-50. There's like probably more match that goes into it, but like, you either roll higher than your opponent or you don't. So let's just say dice roll is a 50-50, and if you look at a Drytron deck, that deck is 2/4 extenders or like 2/4 like anti-hand trap cards, where that deck doesn't actually have the space to fit any going second cards. Which means basically if you win the dice roll, you win game 1 for free against Drytron. So in order to lose to Drytron, you already have to fail a 50-50 check. Then on top of that, you have to see 0 of your 9 hand traps. I'm counting the 9 hand traps being Ash, Fader, Imperm because those are the most played hand traps and they all single-handedly end the Drytron player's turn. So you have to see none of your 9 hand traps in game 1. The chance of that happening is like 25.82%. And then after game 1, you have to see none of your 15 hand traps because you will side in triple cycle reader, triple draw. If you're playing triple cycle reader, triple draw, you will side those in, which means game 2 or game 3 you have 15 hand traps in your deck, all single-handedly beat Drytron. And the chance of seeing 0 of your 15 hand traps is literally an 8.07% chance. And so in order to lose to Drytron, you have to miss a 50-50, then hit a 25.82, and then hit an 8.07 check. Altogether, that you have like a 1.04% chance of actually losing to Drytron. However, you do have to take into account that Drytron players are playing anti-hand trap cards specifically because of this. Like, they have to basically. If they don't play anti-hand trap cards, they will lose 98.96% of their matches. Which means that naturally they are forced to play the anti-hand trap cards such as Herald of Orange Light, Triple Tactics, Call by the Grave, etc. So for an accurate result, we're going to have to take these into account as well. So let's start with what are the chances of them opening Herald and a Fairy, because it's not as simple as just open Herald, you beat a hand trap, you have to open Herald and a Fairy. So it's like less than 33%, but like let's assume they play like 3 Definer, you have 3 Herald, you have Natasha, Ben 10, Herald, etc. like Ultimate Nurse. So altogether it's like a 27.67% chance that they draw a Herald and a Fairy. Now you also have to account for Instant Fusion, Triple Tactics, Call by the Grave. These are like 5 cards, which seeing 1 of 5 is like a 50.66% chance of happening. I'm not going to take into account Crossout simply because Drytron is not going to play Crossout realistically. Like Drytron is already really tight in the main deck, so in order to fit Crossout, like, it's just not reasonable to happen. So we get to not have to deal with that maths. So the chance of Drytron opening a hand trap counter is about 78.33% chance. But that only counters 1 hand trap. What if you open more than 1 hand trap? So we have to take into account what's the chance that you only see one of your hand traps? So the chance of seeing one of 6 hand traps, and I'm saying 6, not 9. The reason why is because we can't really take impermanence into account. If you look at infinite impermanence, none of these hand trap counters actually deal with imperm. So we're going to calculate the chance of seeing only one of your 6 hand traps, only one of Fader or Ash, which is about a 42.29% chance. In games 2 and 3, you have 6 more, you have the Cycle Reader and Draw, and the chance of only opening one of 12 is about a 37.34%. Now, we have to look at how often Drytron will open a hand trap counter when you only open one hand trap. In game 1, it should be about a 33.13%, which will then decrease to a 29.25% chance going into games 2 and 3. Now, I said we will cover imperm in a bit. The reason why obviously is because imperm no care. You just slap imperm, they can't actually do anything about it except for cry. So we have to take into considering imperm does literally kill the combo. If you see imperm, you win the game. That's about 33% chance. So the chance of you not seeing imperm is 66.24%. But on top of imperm, you have to take into account, if you see droplets, you also auto-win against Drytron. And so the chance of not seeing either imperm or droplet is about 42.29% chance. Now, I know not everyone is playing droplets, like for multiple reasons, whether or not they can't have it or whatever. So we're going to split the calculations. We're going to have a calculation for if you play droplets and a calculation for if you don't play droplets. And so let's take a look at if you don't play droplets. In order to lose a match to Drytron, you have to miss a 50-50 check, and then you have to hit a 33.13% chance in game 1 that they see the counter to your hand trap and you don't see more than one hand trap. And then in game 2 or 3, you have to hit a 29.25% chance. And in both games that you lose, you have to hit a 66.24% chance. And that's obviously if you don't play droplets. Which means in these, like, by this maths, you only lose 2.13% of the time to Drytron. Now, that seems really low, right? That's because it is, because Drytron sucks. Like, that's simply the case. Like, Drytron is just a bad deck. That it loses 2.13, I think. I'm just double checking my notes. Yeah, 2.13% of the time. As you need to like hit every single chance of a bad thing happening to you. But then if you play droplets, it's like we do the same maths. However, in the game 2 or 3 match, so we're going to assume you lose game 1 and then you lose game 3. Like, let's just keep it simple. Let's like not look at what if you win game 1 but lose game 2 and 3. Let's say you lose game 1 and then lose game 3. So in game 3, instead of looking at the chance of you missing imperm, because before we were looking at the chance of you missing imperm twice, but now you have to look at the chance of you missing imperm in game 1, and then the chance of you missing imperm or droplets game 2, which is, so you're looking at, you have to hit 50%, then a 33.13%, then a 29.25%, then a 66.24%, and then a 42.29% chance. Which all in all makes it so that you actually only lose to Drytron 1.36% of the time if you are playing droplets in the side. So what's the conclusion? Basically, Drytron is just mathematically disadvantaged. Like, in terms of probability, Drytron is very improbable to top. Like, physically, a Drytron should not be able to top. If you hand trap Drytron correctly, they will pass the one hand trap. So if you're losing to Drytron like consistently, is it a Drytron being broken issue, or is it a you just don't know where to hand trap issue? And I think there's like a lot of people don't realize that difference. Like, you do lose games because of you, right? Even in games that seem like, oh, there's nothing I could do, sometimes those are games that you should have won anyways if you were playing correctly. And so you have to like, this like basically if you hand trap correctly, you should only lose to Drytron 1.36% of the time. If you're playing Droplets, or like even if you don't play Droplets but you're hand trapping correctly, that's like still 2.13% chance that you lose to Drytron. So anyone who says, basically anyone that says Drytron is a good deck is just bullshitting you. They're high on copium, or at least that's just a theory, a card theory. Thanks for watching.